In today's video, we're going to be taking on this week's brand new daily races taking place at Watkins Glen, Trail Seaside and Nordschleife. So let's start this guide with our first race at this week's current daily race at Watkins Glen in Group 4. We're running ×2 tyre wear, ×2 fuel, and we are in Group 4 and it's 10 laps. There is no pit stop required, so this is a sprint race as a daily race. It's flat out from the start to the finish. Now, setting a lap time as fast as you can is going to be incredibly important for this race because with no strategy involved, you want to be starting as far up the field as you possibly can. You can see we're starting from P4 and we've got a lot of fast drivers that have decided to set a lap time already because with the way this race is, once you lose the slipstream, it's very difficult to catch back up because of the way the custom slipstream is at the moment. I know I keep mentioning it, but I do really feel that PD need to do something about it. But we're going to be in the slipstream to Nath here, and Nath is going to do a little bit of a disappearing act here. He's going to go to the left, and I think he had to bail the race. It looks like he had something to do because he's going to completely disappear in front of my eyes. So now we're up into P3 and we've got a little bit of a gap to P2 there, you can see, but that's not going to be a problem because like I said, with this race running the custom slipstream, and this track is quite a nice track in terms of staying with people. It's quite easy to sit in the slipstream. So with that custom slipstream dragging us forward, we're going to be back onto the back of P1 and 2 pretty quickly without that much effort, and that is a little bit of a problem for this race, and that's why I reckon it's really important to get the fastest lap you can get in the time trial to help you start as far up as possible. I will probably go back onto this time trial at some point and try and get myself a 52.8 or something like that because I did a 53, I think it was a 53.0 I did without that much effort. We didn't take too long to get it, so yeah, we should be able to get a 52.8 or something like that with a little bit of effort. And you can see straight away here, we're pretty much right back into that slipstream and we're only 4 attempts off. And from here, it's just a case of working with each other in a way. You don't want to be fighting too much at the start. What you want to try and do is you want to build a bit of a gap to the people that lose the slipstream, so you can get yourself into different groups in this race. If you work well as a group at the front, you'll very often find the top 3, 4, 5 cars will separate from the other group, and then you'll just pull away because if you're not fighting, you're working well with the slipstream, you'll just build that gap up. And you can see by the time we get to lap 3, we've already kind of done this. You can see we're in a group of, I think it's 5 cars or 6 cars at the moment, and behind that there's a big gap already developed. And you can see there, Manu now is going to go for a move to put himself up into P1, which he manages to do, and we're going to tuck in behind P2 now and just stick at our P3 position. There's no point us trying to send that up the inside there. I think it's 2x2 situation through that corner would have been a bit of a disaster with the fact that Manu had just gone for a move as well. So we're just going to hang back here and just try and play this smart. Now this is very, very difficult driving to do when you've got a lot of fast drivers this close together. It's, you know, you're all driving within a tenth, 2 tenths of each other, so you've got to be very careful on the brakes, making sure you don't brake too late. You've also got to be careful of someone deciding they're going to go for a lunge, so you've got to rely on, at this stage, kind of working with each other and trusting the drivers that are around you. So you can see here, we're going to go slightly defensive there, but I'm not going to go, I don't think Costas was going to go for a move, so we're just trying to make sure that we can keep this P3 at this moment because we don't want to fight overly too much to bring other cars into this battle. We can already see that we've got Damien and P6 there that are in this group, so we know there's fast drivers in this battle, so it's all a bit tactical, and that's where I think, personally, I feel the slipstream is starting to take over the daily races a little bit. I think it's far too strong. I think PD need to reduce it by at least 50% because you shouldn't be able to gain as much as you are on the straights. We actually did a little bit of counting of how much you lose, and when I wasn't in the slipstream, going from turn 1 to the next braking zone at the bus stop, you were losing nearly half a second to 6 tenths of a second. Now you can see here, by the time we get to lap 6, we've all stayed in this group. We've kept our P3, but we can see their P2 with the half-second penalty, and that's going to be quite costly. You're going to have to be very careful of picking up a penalty here because, like I say, the groups are going to be very close, so half-a-second penalty can lose you 3 or 4 positions in a race, and again, it's going to be very hard to then get back them positions and get back to where you was. So you really do need to pay attention on them track limits, specifically turn 1, very, very difficult, and also the bus stop chicane can be a place where you're easily going to pick up a half-a-second penalty. Now we're going to go for the move to try and put ourselves in the lead, and Costas is going to go for the move on the right hand side also to try and get himself in the lead. You can see we keep the car as far over to the left as we can here. I think we give plenty of space. I think he turns in a little bit too early and he hits the rear of my car there, but we definitely gave enough space. We were pretty much right up to the left hand side of the track. But now we're going to see Manu's going to go back up the inside, and so is Damien, where we've obviously been compromised on the exit slightly. So back down to P3 where he was, and the battling is going to get quite interesting. Now I do think if you have a proper race of just fighting out on this track, it will be entertaining. But the problem with doing that is you're going to bring other cars into the battle, because of obviously fighting on this track will lose you a lot of time. I mean, perfect example where you can see we're doing 1 minute 53.7s, 8s and 8s, and we're fighting a little bit. So if we weren't fighting, we'd be a little bit quicker than that. However, if you start fighting like we've done on this lap, these lap times are going to drop massively, as you see the cars behind going 2x2 as well, and all that does is lose you a lot of time. You can actually see on the lap after we did there, it was a 1 minute 55.1, so we lost about 1.3 seconds because of the fighting. And you do a couple of them and you've brought other cars into the battle, so just be very, very careful with that. And you can see here now, as we work our way through this long right hand corner, this corner is very, very tricky. It's all about using the rotation of the gears if you start on the steering, but ideally you want to be in fourth gear a little bit early there, so you can power out that corner without the gear shift change. Now we skip to the end of lap 8 and the start of lap 9 here, and you can see we're going to go through a track guide and try and give you some pointers on this lap here. We're starting to get a bit of a rhythm going. You can see back into a 53.4. And we're going to be looking for our first braking zone. We're actually going to brake just after the 300 board, but quite a bit before the 200 board there. Now, rotate it in third gear. You can use second gear if you need to get a bit more rotation, but I just tend to just leave it in third gear. Let the braking do the rotation, and then power your way out. Now, you can run the right-hand tyre very close to the edge of that curb and get away with it, so you can use a lot of track limits on the exit of turn 1. And then it's just completely flat out all the way up this hill and then into the bus stop. Now, we're going to be a bit compromised with our braking here because we've got obviously Damien and Manu right in front of me. So we can't really see the brake marker, but we're looking for the 300 board. Normally we'd be braking just before the 300. Here I'm braking pretty much just past the 400 board because I can't brake right on the limit because we don't want to take them out in front of us. Now, what you want to aim to do is get your right hand tyre right up onto the curb on the right hand side there, and then turn left as soon as you're off that curb, and try and straight line that as much as you can. You don't want to be going really wide and then compromising your exit. And you can see just a tiny little bit of braking input going into this long right hand corner just to keep the car as close to the curb as possible. One thing you want to do is try and keep it close to the curb so you can power completely out the exit in fourth gear. Now we're using that 200 board on the right hand side for our next braking zone. You can see braking just short of that 200 board, and again, don't brake late here, because if you do, understeering wide is very easy. So keep it nice and narrow to the apex. You see, waiting for that apex to hit before we can get on the power, and then powering our way down into the next braking zone, which we're going to brake just before the 100 board on the left hand side, in between the 200 and the 100, probably a little bit closer to the 200 actually there. And then second gear for a bit of rotation here. Again, keeping it close to the curb is an advantage through this corner. It enables you to get on that throttle a little bit earlier and then work your way into the next braking zone, which again, we're going to use the 200 as our reference, but we are going to brake slightly past the 200 board. So you can see there, 200 board on the left, but you can actually brake a little bit past it. So by the time we get on the brakes, you can see there, we're slightly past that 200 board. And obviously we've got a bit of slipstream here as well, so we're braking ever so slightly early. And now we're going to go and try and keep that right-hand tyre quite close to the curb on the right-hand side. So using second gear again, touch the curb almost, and then back on the throttle as early as you can to get that exit speed up into this next left-hand corner. Again, 100 board on the right-hand side for our braking reference, braking just short of that 100 board. You can see it there. And now second gear, rotate it in. Now be very patient before putting the throttle down there too early. You'll understeer into the barrier. But if you get it right, you can really get that rotation through the corner nicely. Now into the next braking just before the 100 board on the right hand side again. And again, you want to just kind of let this car coast into the first part and then back onto the accelerator, using all the track limits on the outside. And then again, you can see the little bit of barrier where it separates off there. I use that as a reference for the braking just short of that. And just be cautious as you're rotating it in here. It's very easy to get aggressive here and get too early on the throttle and go straight into the barrier. So just be cautious before you put that throttle back down, and then you should be okay to go over the line. We go over the line on a 153.4 in the race, which isn't too bad as a race lap, but obviously in the time trial you will be going a lot quicker than that. I think I've done I think it's a 53.0 I've done, and I'll be aiming to get a 52.8 like I said before. That's probably what I'll try and get down to, a 52.8. But you can see again here, we're on the final lap, and we're going to see if we can get ourselves up a bit into a better position. So we're in the slipstream to Manu, and we're going to pull out to the right here. And you can see, just as I pull out there, Manu pulls out in front of us as well, and kind of blocks us. I don't think it was deliberate. I think he was just pulling out to overtake Damien, but obviously we pulled out a little bit earlier than him, and it just caused us to get a bit of a block there. But you can see Manu gets himself into P1, and then Damien, as we're coming through here, he's going to take a very tight line into that apex. I think just as he comes out of the exit here, he goes a little bit wide there and nearly loses control of the car. I don't know if there was a bit of lag or something, but it looks like he nearly lost control, but just about manages to save it. We're just going to try and see if we can get as close as we can, just in case they battle towards the end of the lap. So again, into the braking zone. We don't need to go defensive because P4 is a little bit too far behind us to go for a send up the inside there, but we do need to be cautious going into the next braking zone. So Manu goes to the right hand side of the track to try and break that slipstream. We're going to go over to the right once we now see, you can see, gone to the right hand side, and then you can see P4 looks like he's going to go for a dive up the inside, but I brake incredibly late and just about managed to make that apex, and we can hold on to that P3. And you can see we've actually got enough of a gap now that we don't need to go defensive into this next left hand corner. It's all about just trying to stay in this position now. Not many overtaking places left on this track. It's actually a very difficult track to get an overtake done, I think, with the way the slipstream is. And again, like I've said it, I think a lot of people are saying, it's not just myself, I really feel PD need to have a look at this slipstream. I think it's too much. I think in the GT World Series, in the official season, this slipstream is going to cause absolute chaos. I'm going to call it now. There is going to be chaos because of this slipstream. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when that official season actually starts. So let's get on to race B, and we are at Dragon Trail Seaside in Group 3, racing medium tyres, ×1 tyre wear, ×1 fuel as per usual, and it's 5 laps of this combination. So reasonable length race. It's not the shortest, it's not the longest, but not my favourite combination ever. We just jumped into this race, a couple of laps in time trial, jumped in, started P5, and let's see how this race gets on. So for this race, we are in the Supra, and the Supra is probably going to be the dominant car. Just like with Daily Race C, the NSX is going to be very dominant there this week. I think the Supra is going to be very similar here. You might have a couple of other cars, BMW, that can give it a try, but like Daily Race C, it's going to very much be the NSX that dominates that race. It'd be interesting to see if any other cars become a little bit more popular towards the end of the week. As straight away in this race, you can see there the Supra connects slightly with the BMW, and then there's a collision between both of them, and I get a rather nice promotion up to P3 there through doing no work or just pure luck. So pretty happy with that. And now we're just going to try and see if we can stay with the two cars in front of us. We know Manu's going to be faster. I think he's quite quick at Dragon Trail Seaside. I'm pretty sure he's pretty decent around this track, so it's just a case of, can we maybe put P2 under pressure, use a bit of slipstream and see what we can do. And at the moment, I'm not really fully up to speed on this, so we're just trying to figure it out, get them braking points sorted, and just try and get the rhythm of driving the Supra around this track. It's not a car I've driven on this track that much recently, because I think the last time we had this combination that I actually drove it, I think the BMW was possibly the better car on the old BOP. So obviously the BOP's changed slightly, and now the Supra is back being quite dominant around here. So being very, very careful as we go through the chicane of death. You have to be very cautious through there. Always give it a safety lift, I say. If you're not sure, give it a safety lift. That should be the motto every time you come up to that corner. Now you can see by the time we get to lap 2 here, you can see midway through lap 2 we got very, very close to P2. We were actually driving reasonably well, starting to catch him up there. And then as we come through to the chicane of death, I get a little bit too late on lifting off the throttle. You can see that, and I don't get that rotation, and it runs wide a bit. Luckily for me, I just about avoid hitting the wall. However, you can see that one little mistake on the chicane of death, and we've lost a massive amount of time. So by the time we get to lap 4, we were gradually getting closer, but kept making little mistakes. Every time lap 3, same thing happened. We got closer, made a little mistake, dropped further back. And again here, we're going to try and see how close we can get to P2. Very tricky turn 1. A little bit of a mistake there as I lose control of the rear, getting on the power with the Supra. And then as we come through this tricky corner here, where you cut the corner slightly, it looks like Manu might have hit the curb slightly dodgy, and he's lost a lot of time there. He spun out, and that promotes myself up to P2. So from P5 to P2, and now it's a case of, can we catch up to P1 and put him under pressure for the final lap? It's all about just trying to hook up a lap here. It's a very difficult lap to actually get right, I think, with the Supra, because the way the car is, it's quite tricky on the throttle. So it takes a little bit of warming up, maybe a race or so to get yourself warmed up. But you can see, as we come to the end of lap 4, we're getting quite close. Now we're going to run through a little bit of a brief guide review pointing out the brake markers on this final lap. It's not the best lap you'll ever see, but it should be good enough to give you the basics of where you're braking and stuff. So going into turn 1, we are going to be looking for the 150 board on the right hand side there. Now we're going to brake just short of that because obviously we're going quite fast in the Supra. So brake just short of that, downshift through the gears, and you really want to attack the apex of this curb. You can actually get the left hand tire right over the curb on the left here. So you want to aim to get it over the curb, and then that will give you the ability to rotate into this next part and keep on the throttle on the exit there, which you can see we've done. We've actually gained quite a bit on P1. Now this corner you really do need to take over the curb and try and go right over the middle of the car on the curb there. So you can see if you get it right, the car just stays nice and smooth. If you get it wrong, you basically end up spinning off like Manu did before. So onto the brakes nice and early again for this right hand corner. Better to be early than late for this right hander, because if you brake late, you just compromise yourself massively. You want to get that right hand tire to hit the curb so you can get on the power on the exit and work your way down into this fast section. Now this is all about carrying the momentum, carrying the speed. I use the little bit of orange barrier that you can see where it breaks off to the right as your braking reference. You can see just getting on the brakes just slightly past that, and we're going to go down to 4th gear. That will rotate the car into the curb, and then we can get back onto that throttle quite aggressively. You shouldn't need to lift off the throttle. Short shift slightly with the Supra, you don't rev this out, and if you get it right, you can go completely flat out through that section, and then looking for the next braking zone. We're going to be looking for that 150 board, again braking just short of that 150 board, because you want to get this car rotated in. So use the gears to rotate it. You can even use 1st gear here, down to 1st gear to rotate it in, and then back up to 3rd gear for the acceleration. So you can see as we rotate it in 1st gear, then straight back up to 3rd gear for the acceleration, and just be cautious on the curb on the left. If you get out on there while you're on the power, the Supra can spin quite easily, so just be very, very cautious of that. And then again, as we come to the chicane of death, just a little lift off the throttle, completely off the throttle, and then you can see the car will start rotating in. You want to take a wide entry so you can go accelerating out the exit as fast as you can. Now I didn't really push the limits there, but we did it reasonably well, and we're still on the track. That is the main thing about that corner, keeping the car on the track. Now into the final braking zone, we're braking short of that 100 board, just past the 150, short of the 100, and you really want to be slightly earlier on the brakes here, because if you get the line right here, it enables you to get on the throttle nice and early. You can see we've held that apex onto the throttle in 3rd gear, and you can see how we gained on P1 there. One more lap here, and I think we had ourselves into P1. You can see picking up that slipstream, but not enough time to get ourselves into the lead, but still a pretty decent result from where we started. And yeah, not my favourite combo, but Dragon Trail Seaside does tend to give some entertainment with the death chicane. So let's move on to this final race in the Subaru Impreza at Nordschleife, Green Hell, on the Comfort soft tyres, and it's just 1 lap with a standing start. So this is actually quite an enjoyable combo. I only had 1 attempt at this. We're not going to run through a track guide for this because it would make the video far too long. It would be about a 40-minute video, so we're just going to give you some tips with this car at this combination. So basically, one thing you need to know with this car is you need to short shift it. So basically, just as the rev starts seeing on the screen, so once you start seeing that rev counter going up, you're going to let it go up a very small percentage and then shift up, because this car does like to short shift. And you see there, running a bit wide straight away as we're trying to get used to the track. We only had about, I think it was 2 minutes worth of practice before we jumped in, so we're going straight in, no practice. And you can see there we get a little bit of a touch from Costas there as he brakes a bit late, I think, or runs a bit late as he goes on the accelerator, and it just knocks us off slightly, so he doesn't actually overtake us. He waits behind us there and gives us a little bump draft, I think, to say sorry there. But you can see with the shifting, as we're going through the gears, you'll see that short shifting taking place there. You're not going to rev it out too much. Now this was extremely sketchy as we're coming into this corner. You can see Costas is going to go around the outside, I'm on the inside. This corner is very difficult. We go down to 5th gear to try and get a bit of a drift going, and we all managed to get through there without taking each other out, which I think is a miracle considering none of us have done any practice. We've just jumped in, guessing our braking zones, and yeah, somehow we managed to make it through without any incident. But you can see again there, shifting up through the gears. This is definitely a fun combo. I do think if you get a bit of practice on this, you get some decent drivers in this race. I think this would be a very, very entertaining race, and I would actually say I had more fun on this than I did on Daily Race C, as we get a little bit of a shove there and push wide there. Annoyingly, with Gran Turismo's penalty system, we had no choice but to go over the curb because P4 was right next to us. And even though we got shoved wide, we pick up half a second penalty, which is a little bit annoying. It's something that I wish PD would get sorted. They do try their hardest to make that work, but sometimes you still get the penalty no matter what. But you can see here, everyone's having a lot of fun with this car, sliding around, bouncing over the curbs, and like I said, it is a fun combo. I definitely recommend, if you know this track, give this a go, because it's not the easiest car to drive around here, but I think with a bit of practice, everyone will be able to have quite a lot of fun with this race if you have a good battle like we're having here. We've got a few cars to battle with. We're not on our own. If you end up on your own, you probably will get a bit of a lonely race, but when it's like this, as we see there, we brake a little bit early, we tuck underneath, we pull off a lovely little overtake on the inside there, and now we just got to try and go around the outside. We get a bit of a drift going, and you can see, because I'm slightly compromised on the exit, that car is going to go back down our right hand side. Now make sure you short shift there. You can see the car, even though he had the momentum, he's revved it out there, and you can see when you rev it out, you don't really carry that momentum on. So yeah, make sure you are short shifting. Now as we come through here, we got the inside, and I think this was a perfectly fair move. We slow it down, and you can see as we're slowing it down here, we're staying to the curb, and then you can see we're pretty much right up to the curb, but I think he turns in a little bit too early. You can see it in the mirror. He turns in a little bit too early. We gave plenty of space on the outside, and I would normally wait, but I felt like that wasn't my fault. I felt like we held it to the curb. He turned in a bit early, and yeah, he got pinballed by Gran Turismo's lovely pinball physics. But he's still in the battle. He's right behind us there, 7 tenths behind us, so all is not lost. So we're going to get into the slipstream of Costas now, and from here we're not going to try and overtake him going into this corner because it's not really worth it. What we're going to do is we're going to try and bump draft him into the car ahead. So you can see, give him a little bump draft, let him get closer to them cars up ahead, and let's see if we can get a little bit closer before we get to the corkscrew. You can see by the time we get to the corkscrew, we're only a few tenths behind P3 now, but we've got that half a second penalty, so we need to really get as close to them as we can before that penalty zone. And you can see as we come through here, I'm not sure what happened there, but it looks like there's a little bit of contact from P3 and Costas there. You can see as we go into this braking zone, there's a bit of smoke that kicks up. I'm not sure if P3 braked a little bit early and caught Costas by surprise. Now Costas is going to try and go around the outside, but P3 is not going to have any of that. A little bit of contact, and you can see that the tiniest little bit of contact just pushes Costas out wide there. And now we're going to try and see if we can get ourselves up into P3. So P3 sliding around a lot. We're just going to try and pick where we can go for a move. And then Costas goes for a move on our inside there. He sees an opportunity, and he actually does quite a nice overtake to put himself up into P4. And we're just going to have a little look up the inside here to see if there's an opportunity. You can see we almost go side by side with Costas, but we're going to back out of that. And then as we back out, Costas goes a little bit drifty into the corner and gets on the throttle a little bit too early, and he runs wide, picks up some dirty tyres, so we're going to go back up into P4. But in terms of racing, I have to say, probably the most entertaining race I did out of like Daily A, B and C. Daily C was a different type of enjoyment. It was more that intense battle when everyone's close together, very close racing, slipstream taking over. But this is just pure, like, more chaotic fun, I find. And yeah, I enjoyed this daily race. I definitely think I'll do a couple more of these this week and try and maybe do a little bit of time trial just to get myself a little bit more used to the combo, because I'm not 100% sure on the braking zones as we go side by side there. I think the curb might have, when we hit the curb, we actually went into the side of him. I don't think he was trying to ram us off there. I just think that was a bit of contact from the curb. But again, we're going to go into this next right hand corner. Have a look up the inside. We can't go from him. It's very difficult to get your braking points in this car. It is very, very hard because of the comfort soft tyres. You're trying to brake late, but ever so slightly late, and the car just understeers or slides into the corner. So just be very cautious with this, especially when you go from 4th gear to 3rd gear. You'll find this car rotates massively, so just be ultra cautious on them downshifts when going from high speed. So into this long right hand corner, you can see there we've got nice momentum here, and we've actually took quite a nice line. We actually have to get off the throttle a bit there because we got very, very close to the back of that Subaru. But we're going to take this penalty now, and you can see the half-second penalty isn't going to be that much of a problem. You see, we get straight back into the slipstream, and yeah, half a second, we only lost, what, half a second pretty much on the track, which is quite unusual. And you can see there, Costas is going to give us a bump draft, and now we've got that slipstream. We're going to catch right back up, go to the left-hand side, and you can see we're down the left-hand side. It gives us just about enough space to make the curve, and we put ourselves up into P3. Now, as we come to this section, this is really, really sketchy. You have to be super careful on the brakes. You can see the car sliding, and then as we come into the braking phase, we're drifting into the right-hander. Just about managed to keep it on the track, and then into the final right-hand corner, and just make sure we don't run too far wide. We've run a little bit wide, but still we managed to take that podium. So a very, very solid race. I enjoyed that one. I have to say, definitely give this race a go. There's no obviously DR in it, but there is a chance of obviously SR down, so just be careful with that car because it isn't the easiest car to drive. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll be back with another one of these next week, and I look forward to seeing you for more live streams this week. Take care, everyone.